Hola, ¿cómo estoy? Pues es una idiomas. Las han dicho que Odos.
Good evening. I'm Vasily Karachi, Captain of the Week. I'd like to welcome you all tonight to this kickoff event of the major conference that the Harvard College Hellenic Society, in collaboration with the Greek Economic Forum, hosts this week from today until the 15th of May. And I'm very, very happy to have with us tonight Professor Eyridice Georganteli, and she is the Marie Curie Senior Research Fellow, Harvard Fellow in Byzantine Studies, Byzantine and medieval, and also lecturer in numismatics, University of Birmingham, UK. She is the author of many, many books and edited volumes, and I will just mention a few of them, such as the Via Egnatia, the story of a cultural route, Sacred and Profane, Treasures of Ancient Greek with Thomas, and Encounters, Travel and Money in the Byzantine World with Cook, The Walls of Byzantine Thessaloniki with Polita and Konanu, Ethical and Legal Handbook for Digital Humanities, commissioned by the European Commission, and with Curie, and many other projects. And tonight, Eyridice will talk to us on from Via Egnatia to Egnatia Odos, the European cultural route and its preservation. But before that, let me give the speech to one of the representatives of the Greek Economic Forum, Theodoris Nikou, and then we will go to thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello. Thank you everyone for coming here today. It's an honor, and thank you very much for your interest. We started this endeavor because we wanted to rebrand Greece and show her true self abroad, because they need to show something different. That's what we believe, and give the chance to the youth to start over and create opportunities for them to come back and make things from their country and be productive and use their knowledge. Uh, Today is our beginning, and we'd like to thank you all again. And I'll give the speech to Ms. Egnatia to continue. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you.
I'll listen to you.
Thank you. So, thank you very much for this wonderful initiative. Uh, my presentation today focuses on one of Europe's longest, oldest, most traveled and culturally diverse routes. Yet this route is largely unknown, and this is the Via Egnatia. I chose to speak about these cultural routes not simply because I have been working on its archaeology and preservation in my capacity as Marie Curie Fellow, but most importantly, because the Via Egnatia, under its different appellations and transformations, has been for 2 millennia a powerful connecting thread across communities in southeastern Europe, stretching from the Bosporus to the Adriatic Sea, and with Greece at its center. The name of the ancient route has resurfaced quite recently, thanks to the construction of the Nea Egnatia Odos, a mammoth project of civil engineering. The completion of Egnatia, whose course runs in several cases parallel to the ancient roads, has transformed communications in Greece from Evros River to Igoumenitsa on the Ionian Sea, and has prompted rescue excavations that have resulted in important new finds. Now, the question is whether Egnatia Odos and the new archaeological discoveries have brought the Via Egnatia any closer to its inclusion in Europe's official list of cultural routes. So this is the project of Via Egnatia Odos. You might be familiar. It starts from Evros, from Kypsela, and ends here in the Ionian Sea. So this is not, the ancient Via Egnatia I'm going to show you continued all the way to Albania, ending in Dures Dyrrhachium, and Apollonia. You might have traveled along these routes. It's quite expensive to travel, but it's wonderful because it's really a wonderful project of civil engineering. So as an archaeologist, of course, I have rejoiced in the opportunity to see cultural assets showcased along the routes. Having traveled last year along the route, I'm not so sure that I was able to discover all the sites because of very poor signage, etc. So, next slide, thank you. So this is some of the routes included in the official list of Europe. You can see that we can have the Mozart routes, the Kelts routes, everything, but Via Egnatia is not included. And this is a route which is very long. It's over 1,600 kilometers. It crosses 4 countries. So you can see small routes, longer routes, the Gypsy route, the Phoenician route, the Viking route, but the route in the Balkans is not there. So if this route is not there, at least the plethora of archaeological assets that have emerged, have they been put into good use by Greece? So the next slide, please. Thank you. And again, you might be familiar, last year, there was a major discovery in Amphipolis of the so-called Kastas II, a monumental structure with various chambers. This is the head of a sphinx, a caryatid, and majestic finds. Yet the controversy around the two, once again, has smeared a fantastic work of art. So, a major finds along Egnatia. What is its current use? The next please. Here, this is one of the connecting routes of the Egnatia. This is the Evros Valley. When Egnatia Odos, the constructing company, decided to create this route, of course, they also pledged to create vertical routes to Albania, to Bulgaria, to Fyrom. So, Plotinopolis is the archaeological site next to Limon. One of my colleagues, exceptional good archaeologist, unearthed last summer these amazing mosaics dating to the 2nd and 3rd century AD. But as an archaeologist, I can tell you that we have no money in the archaeological service. So, having traveled to the Dimorphon and Plotinopolis, I'm not very sure that these amazing finds are properly displayed and can be preserved because of the lack of money. So, a cultural route. A cultural route, there's a very precise definition by ICOMOS, this is UNESCO, about what it is. So, it's a land, water, mixed or other type of route, which is physically determined and characterized by having its own specific and historic dynamics. And of course, the Via Egnatia is one such route. In contrast to a simple tourist route, invented in the 20th or 21st century, a cultural route is not invented and is not designed. The Via Egnatia covers a distance of nearly 700 miles, linking Istanbul to Dires, and the Mediterranean to its rich and culturally diverse Balkan hinterland. The connection the route has been providing over time and space to communities, ideas, languages, religious practices have resulted in a wealth of tangible and intangible heritage. As cultural asset, the Via Egnatia has been shared and managed by 4 stakeholders: Greece, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Albania, and Turkey. The connecting routes, which are an important part of the story of Egnatia, make Bulgaria and Serbia also important stakeholders and custodians. Next one, please. Part of the route was created by King Philip II of Macedon in the 4th century. Philip wanted access to the east and west, and he liked very much the idea of using
the gold and silver resources of Mount Pangaeon near Philippi. So we have traces of this route extending all the way to Philippi, and we know that Philip went as far as Odos, modern Ohrid in the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. The splendor of cities founded by Philip speak volume of his consistent and ambitious vision. So you can see here, this is a gold stater of Philip II, and this gold came from Mount Pangaeon near Philippi. Here, this is Iraklia Linguistis, modern Capitola. If you go to this archaeological site, which is next to a cemetery, this is a transformative experience. Not only the ancient theater created in the 4th century exists, but thanks to a restoration undertaken by the Italians, we have this wonderful Roman and early Byzantine city with possibly one of the most amazing complexes of mosaics in the world. In 146, 120 BC, a new road was created. And this road was created under the supervision of the Roman proconsul, Gnaeus Egnatius. And this road followed the royal route of Philip. Named after him, the Via Egnatia, after Ignatius, at first linked Dyrrhachium on the Adriatic to Thessaloniki. The road, this is one of the milestones, because the Romans were very meticulous. They wanted to make sure that everyone understood the distances. And you can see this is one of the milestones now in the Archaeological Museum of Thessaloniki with a name. This is a close-up of Ignatius. So display of power and of great commission was always there. The Romans were the masters. The road also was very busy. And this is an enchanting relief, a funerary relief for a pig, found in Edessa, the archaeological site. So the pig and its owner were traveling from Dyrrhachium to probably Edessa and further to the east, along the Egnatia, but because of the heavy traffic, the pig was killed. And his owner created this humorous funerary encomium about the pig, and one can find this relief on the walls of the late Roman and early city of Edessa. So why the Romans had such appetite to be in the Balkans and to create, to spend money and resources on this route? The Via Egnatia was perceived as the continuation of Via Appia, so a very fast route, motorway, to connect cities. This is a route of conquest, and therefore very important. Eventually, it became a commercial route and a route of pilgrimage. And Roman emperors continued to embellish and to expand all the way to Constantinople. In the 1st century AD, the Via Egnatia became connected very much with St. Paul's journeys. St. Paul comes to Neapolis, then he goes to Philippi, Amphipolis, Thessaloniki, and Pella. And the heritage, the sites that emerge along these routes are simply incredible. This is the Byzantine and medieval, late medieval, because it was under the Cateluzzi family. But before that, we have the Romans, Hellenistic, ancient Greek city of Enos, modern Enes in Turkey. So if you cross the border, Greece-Turkey, this is one of the first sites you can see. And it's on an estuary of Evros River, of Maritsa or Meris in Turkey. This is a heavily militarized zone. So you try to find your way to the archaeological site, and you see soldiers, tanks, heavy artillery. But the site is simply an amazing castle. And and the views make you realize the geography of transport in the Middle Ages. Now, because of course this is in Turkey, when we study Egnatia in Greece, we don't consider it, which is a very, very big problem. The next one, please. If you cross the border and you are in Greece now, this is in Thrace, and this is the Byzantine monastic complex on Mount Pakikion, one of the monastic complexes, on the Rhodope Mountains. This is between Komotini and Xanthi. How many of us know the treasures of Thrace? Very poor signage, roads which are below average, and of course, not the greatest idea or clue we have about how to do in order to promote culture in Greece have resulted in a very low number of visitors to Thrace. Thank you. This is in Amphipolis. Again, the site is deserted. We were the only ones. It was a beautiful summer day, and we remained the only ones for 5 hours. And the site is incredible, overlooking the river, and it gives you a very, very good idea about the topography and also about the religious beliefs. This was a major center for pilgrimage in the early Byzantine period. People flocked from everywhere in order to find this memory of St. Paul and to understand how a city transforms itself from pagan to Christian. And Philippi. Philippi once again. Philippi should be, this is along Egnatia, should be a major tourist attraction. Is it? No. We are still fighting as archaeologists to include this in the UNESCO list, and I hope that one day we can succeed. This is from Ohrid. We cross now from Greece to Pyro, and you can see here this amazing baptismal font and mosaic floor. How many of us know about the heritage in the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia? This is where one of the apostles, one of the students of St. Cyril and Methodius stayed and preached. The city is called otherwise the Jerusalem of the Balkans because of the sheer number of churches. But again, we don't include this in our narrative. And here, this is Dyrrhachium. And this is part of the ancient amphitheater. So when the Roman tradition of amphitheater and gladiatorial games finishes, then we have the transformation of space into shops, sometimes into graveyards, and in this case, we have a little chapel with these amazing mosaics. In Thessaloniki, I am from Thessaloniki, I'm really upset by this ongoing controversy, whether this is what they found, the construction company, the metro, at the city center, and they found the crossroads of, this was the commercial hub of late Roman and Byzantine Thessaloniki. So, the previous one. So this one, this is like Pompeii, under the modern surface of Egnatia. But because they would like to introduce a ticket booth for the metro stop, the whole idea is to move the ancient roads, take it outside the city, bring it back, or something like this. Absurd. This, by the way, this phenomenon, archaeological discovery, is not is off limits, so nobody can visit. So the city also doesn't get any money at all, any tourist interest because of this ongoing pasta. Thank you. Holy Apostles. Some of the mosaics along the Egnatia are the precursors of early Renaissance. And the Holy Apostles in now the western section of Thessaloniki, in a rather deprived areas, has one of the most spectacular mosaics of Europe. Do we know anything about them? And here you can see also the different layers of the heritage of Egnatia. This is a drawing which shows Holy Apostles as probably an Ottoman mosque. And this is the kind of picturesque setting is by early modern English traveler. And he charts his itinerary, and you can see here some couleur locale plus the minaret indicating that this was a mosque. Here, I'm sorry to take you back and forth, this is in Dimortikon. This is possibly the earliest mosque in Europe. The Dimortikon Thrace was among the first areas conquered by the Ottomans. And this is one of the earliest examples of Ottoman mosques in the Balkans. So again, this is something which we should celebrate, make it as a touristic attraction, allow people to come and see the splendor of architecture along the Egnatia. But there are problems. If all the sites that I have shown you reflect the importance of Egnatia as a conduit of cross-cultural interaction and fertilization, the question is, whose heritage is this? And the problem is, of course, that we have four different stakeholders with different approaches to management of heritage, but also we have some pretty old problems which have nothing to do with the Balkans, but they have to do with the concept about what are the Balkans in Western historiography. So I started working on the roots, first as a member of the Greek Archaeological Service, and then as the co-keeper at the University of Birmingham in the UK. And I can tell you that the kind of experience standing on two different sides of the fence has been very helpful and very instructive. So let me elaborate. As an archaeologist, I excavated and conducted surveys in places along Egnatia, replete with memories from the 4th century BC all the way to the early 20th century. Then approaching Byzantium from a British institutional perspective, I could see how memories and interpretations of Byzantium outside the Balkans have been and still are shaped by later cultural and national agendas. In Eastern Europe, the idea of Byzantium has acquired more potency with the ending of the communist regimes. In the West, historians of Byzantium still struggle with the weight of a powerfully negative tradition that has also made its way into common English language. The Byzantine, with lower case, the Byzantine Appointments Committee in universities means terrible criminals. Byzantine administration, all kinds of machinations. Byzantine complexity. There are just a few cases which convey duplicity, unnecessary complexity, and this stated use of the adjective Byzantine is partly linked to the subject of Byzantine Orthodoxy, which not very many Western historians feel confident when faced with it. And if you add to this explosive mix disputes over ownership, and I just wanted to show you two examples. The first one is a milestone of Egnatia. I showed you the first one in the Archaeological Museum of Thessaloniki. This is the second one, excavated near Dalkos River, so in the outskirts of Thessaloniki. It was found by the French army in the course of the First World War. And then it was transported to the Musée du Louvre in Paris. Now, in 1915, Thessaloniki was part of the Greek kingdom. So there was no it was not necessary to transport something because there was no museum or there was no authority. Nevertheless, Greece was deemed as provincial, a backwater, a terrible place where heritage would be stored. Here, This is the statue of the mounted warrior, as it's called officially. But this is really the statue of Alexander the Great in one of the major squares in Skopje. And if you visit this place while the statue was built, it's very impressive. It costs a lot of money, and it tries to say something. Now, if Greece and Skopje would like to work together on this road and promote cross-national collaboration, I'm sure this is a thorny issue which doesn't exactly allow this collaboration to take off. Then, apart from older and more recent problems, we have some problems which are really specific to every country. Having four major stakeholders, we have an absence of a unified approach. Cultural and educational practitioners and research centers are very different in every country. If you go, for instance, to Bulgaria and you see the preservation of archaeological sites, sometimes the sites will look like new. When we were there, my son said, "Sanke Nurgel Kasuma." So it's very different. The same in Turkey. We have, of course, also cultural practitioners are soft targets of the ongoing economic crisis. And here, I would like really to focus your attention. These recent debates, whether a commercial hub, archaeological site of Byzantine Thessaloniki should be moved to accommodate a ticket booth, or the assumption, like in the case of Plotinopolis, that archaeological services can operate without sufficient personnel or money are beyond absurd and make no economic sense whatsoever. Political expediency and social unrest. We had a few days ago, and I think it's ongoing in the Republic of Macedonia, problems in Tetovo. How can you preserve heritage when people are fighting? In Turkey, 2 years ago, a year ago, we had problems in Istanbul. How do you preserve archaeological heritage when people want to construct commercial piazzas? On top of all this, there is a noted absence of a comprehensive research initiative, which can transcend modern Balkan national boundaries and political rhetoric. Such a research initiative has the power to bring together written sources, archaeological data, and the application of economic history and the geography of transport to map the road, because no foundation or institute would accept a candidacy for Egnatia unless there is a folder, right, a package which says, and here we are. Only when the course of Egnatia is reconstructed and the built environments, economy, and cultures that emerge along that route are well understood, one can address on a European level and international level issues such as the preservation and promotion of Egnatia's tangible and intangible cultural heritage. And just a very short note about intangible, because it's not always understood. I showed you the tangible one. What is intangible? It's all about culture, music, food, and we have plenty. In 1500s, a very important community was chased out of their homes in Western Europe and made into the Ottoman Empire. These were the Sephardic Jews. They settled in Thessaloniki, in Bitola, Monastir. They settled in Albania, and they produced amazing culture. If you go to Israel, they mention Thessaloniki as Madre de Israel, the mother of Israel. The songs, incredible. We have Armenians, we have Bulgarians, we have Turks, we have Serbs. These are communities which left traces, and we should celebrate rather than eliminate. So, how do we preserve them and how do we prepare something which makes sense? First of all, I thought that apart from writing a book, I would like to see how a global audience, and most importantly, how kids engage with cultural heritage. So now we have a domain hosted by Harvard. It's done, it's official, and it's going to be unveiled later this year in Brussels. And this is a web portal which has important sites. I have traveled last summer. We are going to travel this summer as well, all the way to Dures. Short stories and a virtual narrator for kids, a merchant or a pilgrim from the Middle Ages. Somebody who takes them by hand and shows them sights. Because remember, kids don't know geography, and this is a very big problem. Then, I'm the ethical manager for my scenes in a European project dealing with lifelong engagement with culture. And in the course of this project, which runs parallel to the Egnatia project, we tried to make cultural roots accessible to a wider audience. In this case, we tried to develop an application and a platform which allows personalized itineraries for people. So, if you are someone who is interested, let's say, in Islamic coins, you still have the chance to visit the roots and find out about Ottoman monuments and money. If you are interested in Byzantine, you can see lots about urban centers and countrysides along a major Byzantine route. If you are interested in Tsar Samuel, you can visit the road and see Ohrid and the fortress and all the remains. If you are interested in the Crusades and the course of destruction they left, you can still see that by looking at coin holes. So, lots of potential to make the road more accessible. Education. I'm very, very pro education. I think unless we generate a lot of interest to children from the age of 5, even earlier, we cannot stand any chance to see this road and to see any as a united road and to see any cross-national collaboration. Foreign universities. We have here at Harvard lots of summer schools everywhere. And I'm very happy to say that this summer, Harvard is going to host the summer school in Greece, also founded in Thessaloniki. And I think this is very important to be able to allow the students to connect with the culture of the area. One of the students here in the Fine Arts Museum, she's coming as my guest in order to produce the short documentary of Thessaloniki this summer. Then we have other opportunities for the so-called cultural tourism. And of course, cultural tourism is the easiest way for people to discover an area and to feel very close to sites and memories. Biblical study too. So at the moment, they are only focusing on Philippi. But of course, there are all sorts of other sites which are so relevant to the travels of St. Paul. The Jewish communities. The mayor of Thessaloniki started this connection with Israel, and we have quite a few Jewish cruise boats, I think, which come to Thessaloniki. And I think it's very important. Study tours. People now have quite a lot of money, and they wouldn't like to leave them all to their children. In England, there was an article about people around the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, sending postcards to their kids and saying, "Hello, we are spending your inheritance." So, these study tours are wonderful opportunities for adult education, focusing on the archaeology and making the roots feel so close. Gastronomical tours. I'm a foodie, and I'm sure quite a few people here love the idea of attending a cooking class. Why all cooking classes should take place in Italy and not along the Balkans? Greece, Albania, Fyrom, Turkey, wonderful gastronomical traditions. Wine tours. I took the Friends of the Barber Institute from Birmingham University back in 2002 to Macedonia. And we combined archaeology with lots of wineries, diaries, etc. And this was a great opportunity for them to see the production of a country. Modern cities should be accessible. And if you land in cities along the Via Egnatia, you will see that this is not the case. Very often we lack guidebooks or even very, very simple instructions. So myself, I feel like an alien landing even somewhere in Greece and not understanding how I can go from point A to point B. So accessibility and observation of best practice. There are people with mobility problems. We should have ramps. We should not park our bloody cars, next to to where people should walk. We should make our cities accessible and friendly. All in all, this is a great opportunity for Southeastern Europe to come out of this little hole of isolation and produce something amazing. We have a heritage which starts from the 4th century BC and hasn't ended yet. We have wonderful places and wonderful people, and it's only up to us whether we have the courage to say, let's go and do it, and create a package which says a lot about our vision as Greece, but also as a player in Southeastern Europe. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this rich presentation. I'm sure you have plenty of questions for Eyridice. Would you take some questions? Yes, a lot of interesting ideas and applications and your ideas about how we can benefit from such a cultural route of 2,400 years is amazing. So even starting with one of what you suggest, it would make a big difference in the Southeastern Europe. Yes.
You showed us a picture of the booth for the metro. This is in modern Egnatia, under the road,
Yes.
and so on. Are they planning to move the whole monument in order to install it? What solution would we give for that? Like, okay, I can understand that they cannot move the part of the metro station somewhere else. So, would it be better to build nearby a monument or a hole to hold the monument?
Yes. I mean, it's a kind of impossible task, and the thing is that in Greece, very often we are very bloody-minded. Yes, compromise is a very good word exercised, especially in Britain and here. So I have followed excavations in Geneva because also there they had to face challenges for public transport. In Sofia, in Bulgaria, and they have a super metro there. So everyone accommodated in a very intelligent way the two parts of heritage. Here, the mistake was from the very beginning, we should never have built a stop where archaeologists knew from the very beginning that this was the crossroad of late Roman and Byzantine. Here we have two options, either to scrap the stop, because Thessaloniki is very small, it's like Boston, so the historical center doesn't need 5 stops. It's okay, people can walk. But it's extremely expensive and near impossible to move these gigantic pieces of stone. And of course, the problem and danger is that when you move this and you start slippery, yes, you don't care to move it back. And there was even a suggestion to move it to Stralopedos Kodra or something like this. Which again, this is outside the city. This is not Disneyland. You don't move the rotunda outside the city.
both economically and let's say technically. The best solution would be keep it in the place and change the plans.
Yes.
Can I ask why they don't do it?
It's about, I know, I mean, I think with Thessaloniki, it's like we are cursed with this metro. There are, this is probably a kind of a political decision or flexing muscles, but it's to the detriment of the city, because think that um, preserving heritage should lead to a boost of economy. I see the city center of Thessaloniki in a complete economic decadence because of the metro. I mean, boarded shops, etc. You go to Ohrid, and this is in fire, and you enter the city, they give you a program, and this was last summer, with all the music events that they are there. The city is very clean. As a tourist, I would love to go back, apart from the fact, of course, and this here comes nationalism, that my best friend who guided us there, and her car had Greek paints. It was vandalized because of the Greek paints. So we are another peculiar area or small corner of Europe, but I think that if everyone else sorted out their mess, it's incredible that we have such a treasure, and we either try to hide it, destroy it systematically, as in this case, or obliterate it from memory. If you go to Thrace is in the outskirts of the imperial country. I cannot reconcile the fact that this is one of the most important medieval sites, and yet, if you go there, you see that people are in complete desperation. It's underpopulated, there is no promotion of cultural tourism. So we felt as if we were some kind of pilgrims in a forgotten land.
So I have two questions, if I may. As an engineer, my mantra has been over the years, don't just tell me what the problem is, propose a solution. And this is a case, for example, the metro stop. You already proposed a solution, get rid of it. Are there other solutions that are being proposed by society in general that would encompass the archaeological sort of like part of it? And that question is in parallel with, I have been very surprised and impressed by the metro in Athens, and clearly they have had similar problems in Athens. Could you enlighten us a little bit in terms of how did that work? Was there a give and take? Was there a proposed solution? And so on? How did that work out in Athens? Has it worked out well? Has it not? And so a general experience from the Athens situation, what lessons we learned there?
There are two issues here. Thank you so much. Responding to your question about alternative solutions, the Polytechnic School, yes, of Thessaloniki, proposed a very comprehensive plan. And the problem is that, again, flexing our muscles doesn't allow us to enter a constructive discussion. So everyone stood, at trench and saying, I'm not going to do it. You have to compromise. Rather than thinking ahead and say, these crossroads survived centuries. We are complete incompetents, not to say, we are treacherous to our own culture if we just compromise this and say, let's get rid of it because of political expediency. So there were suggestions and plans, but there was no time to consider them. And I'm afraid even the Archaeological Service or Council sometimes compromise, this kind of discussion. Athens has lots of treasures and archaeological assets. But let's not forget that Thessaloniki has continuous habitation. So it was an urban center. And also the soil is very different. So we have challenges when excavating from the metro because of the the soil. But also, everywhere you dig, you find antiquities simply because we have Cassandra's Thessaloniki, the first site. We have even prehistoric sites, and then Hellenistic, Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman, etc. So there were greener forms of transportation. They were talking about a trolley or something like this. So a surface transport. They were saying, please ban this very heavy circulation of cars from the city center, because even now, if you visit the center, you see how impossible it is to circulate. So I have the feeling that the construction company, which is exactly the same in Athens, had to face different challenges, and possibly in Greece we have a lack of communication between the center and the periphery. So I personally, I feel quite resentful to this heavy-handed approach. We command, and that's it. This is the heritage of a city, and this should be preserved, and the citizens of the city should have a great say in this. And the fact that it has polarized so much the local community, it's so counterproductive. Yeah, I mean, yes, you're right. In Athens, they are beautifully displayed, also the finds from Keramikos, etc. It should be the same. Now we're talking about when is the end of the project? When I would be 90 years old, probably, for the metro.
Another 70 years?
Thank you. Yeah,
And may I have my second question?
yeah.
You mentioned, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at my phone because that's where I kept my notes,
Yes.
because my 70-year-old brain is getting slow, almost 70. You mentioned that there has been a fight to include the Egnatia in the UNESCO list, and an unsuccessful one. Who's objecting, and what's the basis of the objection?
It's not a UNESCO, it's first of all, we need to include Egnatia in the list of European cultural roots. This is the first. So there is the European Institute of Cultural Roots, and it's based in Luxembourg, and they have been instrumental in creating the right platform for cross-national collaboration. So I called and had a correspondence with them, and I asked the simple question: why we are not there in the list? And the answer was equally simple: nobody ever made a proposal.
Because I understood you say that there's been objection, and I wasn't sure who was objecting on what grounds.
Yeah, it's amazing, and again, this shows the complete lack of.
Right.
And in terms of UNESCO cultural heritage, where is it? Is it anywhere?
UNESCO, the funny thing, the ironic thing is that along Egnatia we have several UNESCO sites. So this should be like a piece of cake. We have Thessaloniki, it's a UNESCO site. Ohrid is a UNESCO site. Vergina is a UNESCO site. Philippi, we hope it will enter the list of UNESCO sites. These are just to mention a few. And if we also consider Constantinople, Istanbul. So UNESCO, the first step is really to integrate it in this wonderful family of European cultural roots, and to lobby consistently and aggressively also in UNESCO about the importance of the roots. Because if it's included, there is also an injection of cash to local communities. And I suppose also for worthy projects, for instance, we cannot talk about a Greek route or a Albanian route or a Republic of Macedonian route or a Turkish route. But if a city or cities, key cities, creating collaboration, an educational leaflet, and the leaflet for adults, which talks about the story of the routes and points out main points of interest. It's wonderful. It's like a guide for everyone.
And if I may, it doesn't take $1 billion to do that either. It takes, $1 billion of microseconds of thinking and working.
Exactly. Exactly, exactly. I mean, the portal here, I thought that unless there is visibility and unless the road can be seen in its entirety, then, the texts about each site, I can just copy and paste them and create a leaflet. So as you say, it doesn't need a lot of money.
This is an amazing project you came up. I really would love to see. When are you going to reveal it?
We hope that this will be done, the portal in December, and the book, I'm going to submit it for publication early next year.
How long did it take you to do this cloud tag?
Well, the cloud tag, it started a year and a half ago on cultural roots. The Egnatia is the last one, and it's quite tight. We started with the Varangian roots, so we wanted to connect the Balkans again with other areas of Europe. And if you do collaborative projects, you are forced to converse with partners, and sometimes you have nothing in common with them. So we found ourselves discussing cultural roots with Norway. Norway is very important for European projects. And I thought, rather than creating something absurd, we should find a way to connect Byzantium, this is my area of expertise, with you lot, Norway, through something. So who came to Byzantium all the way from Norway? The Varangians, the most trusted bodyguards of the Byzantine emperor. And again, they told me, we have nothing in common. I said, oh, yes, you do. The first national currency in Scandinavia started because of Byzantium. So, and again, because I'm a numismatist, coins travel a lot, These were their pension scheme. So we have now a little story about Harald Hardrada in the 11th century, and he starts his journey from Constantinople back home. The second route is the Mediterranean route. You saw here that in the list of European routes, there is the olive route. And of course, the Mediterranean route is much more interesting. It can be part of the olive route, but it's not only the olive route. The Mediterranean now is an area where you cannot travel very easily. Can you travel to Syria? Just to mention one area. So again, I thought because our other partner is Spain, and Spain has a very rich Islamic heritage, Alhambra. So I thought of connecting Constantinople, to Gibraltar really, and having a medieval merchant talking about his experience. We cannot possibly travel down to Syria, but a medieval merchant and narrator up there, digital, can tell us a lot about areas.
That's amazing. And the educational dimension they have included in this project is amazing. And the children also benefit. And I like the personal narratives that you embedded there. Is there a way for people to add their comments there?
Yes. Yes, not in the actual little story of Harald Hardrada, but there is a Norwegian platform developed by Norway, which we have adopted. And there, people can add stories, can add photographs, and of course, if you travel, you really want, it's like Facebook, and actually it's connected to Facebook, but it's more education.
That's a great idea. Yes, please.
Question. Thank you very much for your subject. It was quite interesting, and for me personally, I'm quite touched because I'm coming from Thessaloniki, Macedonia, and I was born and raised there. And I also was very interested by your international background and your knowledge. And I wanted to ask concerning your work about the not funds, let's say opportunities you had. It was more from the abroad or from Greece, and what's the problems you faced when you work in Greece, and what we can make to change that in order to make it better for archaeologists, and in order to take an interest, as you said, from tourism and make something good from it.
Thank you. That's a great question. Funds. Funds, of course, in Greece have dried up. And the same goes for many European countries which face challenges with the humanities. So traditional humanities don't get funded. And my fellowship, which is a 3-year fellowship, is very competitive. And I had to compete against scientists, etc. So probably one of the merits of the project was its focus on the communities and the potential archaeology has to create something interesting, for the future. Challenges in Greece. As an archaeologist, sometimes it's very difficult to get access to archaeological material. So, given by fellow archaeologists, and this is something which one encounters not only in Greece, all over Southeastern Europe. So this is a problem. As a visitor, I got really irritated when I couldn't find, important archaeological sites. And I was telling to my husband, they're there. He said, okay, find them. So poor signage is a killer. And again, if you have a site such as Amphipolis, there is a very nice museum there. But we need to develop the site as well. And have to be on the mercantile side, I'm in the business. Produce a little shop there and make use of this shop. So it's a tourist shop, tourist information, make people feel very happy about things. Give them great facilities. In Enos, in Turkey, the site was very peculiar, but we had great fun and we reached easily our destination because the roads were better than the roads in Greece. If you travel to Fyrom, Ohrid, as I mentioned, I was blown away by the beauty and the professionalism of people in the city. If you move a few kilometers to the west, you enter the city of Struga, and there you can sense there is quite a lot of tension between communities. So the first thing you see in your car as a tourist is a very big sign which says, be proud and speak Albanian. So, this is not an easy road altogether. You can have fun, you can also feel quite sad about things. What I feel we should do, especially talking of your point of view, the Greek Economic Forum, is to make culture work. I'm fed up of hearing all this rhetoric about archaeology and culture is our what was it, heavy industry in Greece, something like this.
Yeah, totally.
I believe that in Europe, tourism, cultural tourism can generate a lot of money. And in Greece, with the demise of industry, this can be potentially a great asset. But we should be more professional. And in the case of Egnatia Odos, I have a problem when the road has these wonderful vistas, but there is no way you can find your way to the archaeology of the area. So why the archaeologists do not talk to the construction company? There is no planning, nobody is interested. Is it a road that takes you from Thessaloniki to Evros? That's the whole point. I felt very uncomfortable. It was like being in a lunar landscape with no connection to Greece's past.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So you have a lot of expertise, and that's clear. And the problem you outlined is bringing that expertise to the governmental level because you're talking about structural change. In Greece, I feel that there's my personal experience, there's a disconnect because there we have a very intelligent population. We have a very intelligent and elites with a lot of expertise and much to offer. And obviously, they're probably bringing that's all the smartest people in Greece are leading. Partly because of frustration with systemic problems.
between and disconnect has always been civil society, including dealing with the Ministry of Culture. What civil society values are there within your field to bring expertise to the government environment?
I don't think there are at the moment, unfortunately. I mean, it's like hitting a wall. And I'm with you. I find it much easier to pick up the phone and call colleagues in London or in Brussels or Luxembourg and set up a meeting and make it a constructive meeting rather than meeting a very low official in Greece to discuss very simple thing which is beneficial to a community like an educational kind. So what's the solution? Is it kind of Brussels heavy-handed? We're talking about offering power to the various communities and countries rather than Brussels. I have the feeling that this should be a kind of focused attempt, saying, this is the project. You, Luxembourg, Brussels, are going to face quite a lot of resistance by the four stakeholders, but please, for the sake of Europe, do it for us. But thinking, I mean, what I try to do, first of all, in my research, you cannot go to have a good conversation with people who are talking about governance and cultural heritage in Europe, unless yourself understand what was the thing you're talking about. So by producing this study on the archaeology, practically I'm filling in gaps of we shouldn't be there, and 4 countries should be discussing and have probably annual or biannual meetings, you know, Crete in Pires, in Thessaloniki, in Turkey, in Istanbul, and discussing heritage. In the absence of this, I think this is what they expect also from these fellows, the Marie Curie fellows, is to go and just propose something and say, that's it. And then take action backwards and say to the 4 stakeholders, now, would you like to have a meeting after the action was done? I mean, I feel ashamed that our area is not represented on European level just because of the lack of communication. And I also feel terrible that this results not only in destruction of culture, but also to be very, very, you know, in terms of money, this results in the economic demise of areas. How long threats is going to continue to be considered as Greece's backwater? I feel very uncomfortable about this. In the Republic of Macedonia, these people, if they have economic growth, probably they will have less tension. At the moment, they are very poor. In Albania, the same. In Turkey, this is a previously heavily militarized zone. If we make them enter into our narrative, they might reconsider their stand. So, to cut the story short, I think at the moment it's easier to talk to policymakers in Europe rather than to law officials in any of these cities. And this is terrible, what I'm saying. On the plus side, at least in Thessaloniki, we have wonderful museums and we have wonderful educational practitioners. And these people go out of their way to advertise heritage. So you have efforts trying just to put them together as
I'm confused. I have one more quick question.
yes.
To juxtapose what you just said, it's easier to go to the high officials in Europe than to go to the low level, local.
Yes.
How about in between? How about to the high officials in the small pond?
In Greece, emails never get response. a response. It's very peculiar. They are, as if they are sent to outer space. There is no a culture of accountability. I'm very sorry to say. Yeah, this says it all, yes. And I would like, because we live in a kind of civil society, I would like my correspondence to be answered, either with a yes or a no. And I would like to know this on time so that I can plan my visit, my study tour, or whatever.
Ja, maar dat heb je later.
But you see, on the other hand, this is incredible what our colleagues here have done. So there is hope. I always fear that this is going to become a hero video, but I hope it won't be the case. We can still fight.
And you gave us wonderful suggestions, and the work you have done is amazing. Yes, made a lot of hope, I would say.
So what one hopes is that different aspects. This is from obviously a coin of Philippou, and this is Ignatius. This is St. Paul, because St. Paul, people make a lot of St. Paul. And Paul, one of the main areas he visited was along Egnatia. And here you might not know this. This is in Yenica. And this is in the mausoleum of Evrenos. Now, Evrenos was, Gazi Evrenos, was one of the holy fighters of the Ottoman army. And we are talking about the early Ottoman conquest of the Balkans. So Yenica is a new city he creates. Philip created new cities. Then the Romans created new cities. And then Evrenos wants to make a big statement. And he was buried in this mausoleum. And I'm very happy to say that the Archaeological Service made an excellent job of restoring the mausoleum. So here you find this very elaborate funerary plaque, which of course exalts Evrenos. Here, I'm sure you know this one. This is a Dimitrios from Thessaloniki. And again, we have medieval sources talking about Thessaloniki as an international pilgrimage center. Where is now Thessaloniki in terms of pilgrimage center or even international fair? Sub-zero. And of course this one, this is from the Sephardic community. And this is thrown in the courtyard of Raton. And we know, of course, that the University of Thessaloniki has been built on the extensive cemetery of the Jewish community. Again, let's celebrate heritage in this city. And this one is my favorite, of course, as a numismatist. This is a coin of Basil II. Basil II, otherwise Bulgar Slayer. And again, Basil II, he had a very consistent policy. Warfare, but also expansion along the Egnatia. So celebrating different aspects, not forgetting the story of this route is essential.
May I ask one question? As a numismatic specialist, we have this kind of debate over gamma or euro. Do we have any lessons from your expertise as to how we would face this?
It would be disastrous we will fall without any protection net. I'm afraid there is no growth. There is no, I can't see any solution. 3 years ago, I gave an interview to BBC about the European Monetary Union and Greece and the Euro. And of course, Britain and BBC have their own agenda. So practically, they ask me, they invite me there so that I can say that this is a failed monetary union. Pound is very strong, etc. I resent this kind of interpretation, but I feel that from the stories from history, ancient Greek monetary unions, that unless there is a very cohesive political agenda across Europe and cultural agenda, monetary unions do not mean anything. they can be to the detriment of parts of Europe. We are at fault in this, obviously, but also many people made a great profit out of this, and it's misery. So I fear for the Greek exit. I'm not very positive about whether Greece will remain or not, but it's suicidal. You know, it's like in the case of Egnatia. We have leisure, we have great resources. We just need to make use of them, nothing else.